because over the last year there has been a lot of rough bumps.
I'd be absolutely gobsmacked if it wasn't his last game.
From green shoots of hope to deep disappointment, Erik Ten Hag's first 2 seasons at United was a baptism of fire. With so much promise, yet so many stumbling blocks, what went wrong? How did a promising start turn into a struggle for survival? And more importantly, how can Ten Hag turn things around this season? Ready? Let's talk about the evolution of Ten Hag that is needed, both from a tactical and a personal perspective. Ten Hag's first season in charge showed real promise. Glimpses of tactical acumen as he made game-changing subs on a consistent basis. Exciting wins in big games like Barcelona home and away, Arsenal and City, a career best for Marcus Rashford, Lisandro Martinez, who he brought in from Ajax, instantly becoming a fan favourite, and most importantly of all, silverware, and a top 4 finish for the first time in a decade. So how did that optimism created by Ten Hag in his first season turn into an arduous struggle for consistency? Well, imagine setting out to build on your initial success, only to see your players constantly drop like flies all season. Varane, Martinez and Shaw, who had all been so crucial the year before, were just 3 of many players who were rarely available. Even the backups got injured. The constant injuries disrupted Ten Hag's plans and highlighted a lack of depth in the squad. This meant that Ten Hag was constantly adjusting strategies and lineups, which prevented the team from building any sort of consistency. Let's be honest, it was a disaster. But things were even worse than that. Ten Hag couldn't even rely on the players who had performed so well the season before, like Casemiro and Marcus Rashford. Both of them struggled to light up a match. With Rashford, there were 1 or 2 sparks, but he never managed a consistent flame. And Casemiro, well, we'll talk about the tactics next, but he just looked out of it. Key players underperformed, pressure mounted on the rest of the team, and they were unable to cope. And to boot, Ten Hag got things wrong tactically himself. He was far from blameless. How many times did we see this? How many goals did we concede that looked exactly the same? Erik's high-pressing vertical game clashed with the strengths and weaknesses of the players he had available to him. Instead of adapting, he stuck to it, and that stubbornness certainly hurt him, and the team's inability to execute his vision consistently resulted in tactical catastrophe. No other way to describe it, really. Combine all of these issues with a high-profile player publicly calling you a liar, and a takeover that dragged on for months, it's clear to see what a mess things were, and how much work was needed going into this summer. But after long deliberation, INEOS decided to stick with Ten Hag. Of course, the question was now, how do you fix a broken team with limited financial resources? Player sales have to play a crucial role. Offloading Mason Greenwood to Marseille and moving Willy Cambuala to Villarreal has helped so far, freeing up funds to allow United to bring in Xerxes and Yoro. But more needs to be done in order for United to continue to strengthen. Casemiro, Eriksen, Hannibal, Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, McTominay, Sancho. That's lots of potential exits. So while United are having to work with a limited budget this summer, sell a few of these, and it increases. And this is where United have so much work to do. But can signings alone solve United's problems? The short answer is no. The long answer is still no. Based on last season's shortcomings, Ten Hag must adapt tactically to better suit the players he has at his disposal. So what were the problems last season? Let's look at the 2 main ones that created a whole host of other issues. The team struggled defensively last season. Erik was attempting a high-energy man-to-man pressing system, but the players he was asking to do this were simply not capable of doing it. Look at the distance between the back 4 and the man leading the press. This often led to players being easily bypassed, mainly Casemiro, and enormous areas of space opening up through the middle of the pitch. No stat highlights this better than the fact United conceded the 5th most shots on target in the league, and 3 of the 4 teams who conceded more were relegated. Things were bleak at times, a lot of the season, but there is hope on the horizon. Enter Ruud van Nistelrooy, René Hake, and a brand new coaching staff. Ruud has arrived as part of an all-new setup, and it seems as though he has set about addressing this the right way. The limited sample size we have from pre-season looks as if United have moved away from an ultra-aggressive man-to-man press, and we look to be starting in more of like the 4-2-4 high block that we used against City in the FA Cup final to great effect, with Bruno and McTominay as the 2 central players. And we appear to be using a combination of zonal and man-to-man pressing, which allows us to maintain a more compact shape, leaving less space in midfield. These structural changes and the potential signings of a new centre-back, of a new defensive midfielder, should ensure a far less chaotic defensive system next season. Now, the second glaring weakness last season was United's play in possession, and this often contributed to how poor we were defensively. An inability to simply control a game of football and build up through consistent patterns led to constant careless turnovers. This once again meant that the opposition were able to exploit enormous open spaces through the midfield as they countered. On just a few occasions last season, United looked to build out using a 2-4 structure. It worked really well, but for some reason, it wasn't persisted with. This is something I think Ten Hag and his coaches need to use next season as they attempt to create a more cohesive team in possession. So we've established that Ten Hag needs to make his team more compact out of possession and more controlled in possession. But ultimately, none of this really matters if the biggest problem from last season isn't improved. Injuries. If you have a constant string of injuries, your team is never going to reach its potential. Ten Hag knows this. And the Euro and Højlund situation, it's basically the worst start you could ask for. And while the medical department plays a significant role in managing and preventing injuries, Ten Hag himself can also contribute to this effort. He must emphasize fitness and conditioning within the training regime. Improved fitness levels not only enhance the performance but also help in preventing injuries, but he has to balance that with the intensity of how many games we have on. And I'm not sure we had that last season. This would allow players to maintain peak condition, but obviously, players need rest to keep them injury-free, and that is where Erik can have probably his biggest impact. He needs to improve when it comes to squad rotation. A lack of rotation is something that stood out as a fault of his even during more successful times. Ajax fans and Dutch media complained about it, and it was even a factor in his first season at United, as in the final months of the season players picked up injuries and results suffered. He must rotate more frequently. Give players adequate rest and recovery time. Now, we can't bring in lots of players and have 2 top-class players in every position, but making use of youth players can provide squad depth that is needed, as well as new signings. This approach not only prevents injuries, but aids the development of young players. And Erik will need to implement much better rotation to keep players away from the treatment table and on the pitch. And only he can do that. So as he looks to move forward, an important question Ten Hag must ask himself is, who are my key players? And how do I maximise their impact on games? Bruno, Martinez, Mainoo, Garnacho, Højlund and Rashford are the obvious choices based off his time at the club. And each of these players needs specific support and conditions in order to thrive. Bruno needs freedom to float and create, so he needs a solid defensive base behind him. Martinez will be best complemented by a partner at centre-back who is dominant in the air and has the ability to cover space. Mainoo would thrive with an energetic destroyer alongside him, allowing him to focus on everything going forward. Garnacho and Rashford both need space created in behind so that they can run into, and Højlund needs regular balls played across the face of goal. By maximising the potential of these key selected players, Ten Hag can probably create a much stronger foundation of a team. And that could lead to a successful season, which poses the big question. What would a successful season look like for Ten Hag? Securing Champions League football is the minimum. That is a necessity for Ten Hag next season. We need the money. We need to be back in the top tier elite European football competition, and we need a team who's capable of competing there. But additionally, we need to see United control games. We need to see United dictate both in and out of possession. That's essential for long-term success, and that is what will demonstrate tangible progress, which everybody needs to see next season. Speaking of the fans, what could Erik do to manage expectations? Better communication around the club's goals and the challenges they face. And probably after games, certainly after losses, maybe not saying such crazy things. That, I think, Ten Hag needs to do himself, and only he can change that. Now, Ten Hag's first season at United was a harsh reminder that rebuilding a football giant like United is no easy task. However, by learning from his mistakes, strengthening the squad, making adjustments, both personally and tactically, he's got the opportunity to turn things around, and he's now got the support network around him. Working in harmony with that new footballing department under INEOS, emphasising fitness, integrating youth, leveraging the talents of key players, it'll all be crucial, and with a clear blueprint and a renewed focus, success is within reach.
We have a plan.
For Ten Hag and United, the road ahead is challenging, but it is very exciting, and if it all comes together, I can't wait to see what happens.
The plan is now running.